And we are live. Hello and welcome to Forever Red Devils D-Day for United with our Europa League match tonight against Real Sociedad. The last chance to salvage anything from the season. And I tell you what, if Ruben Amorim wants to get anything out of the season, and as a club we want to try and take any sort of step forward from the season, we have to pitch up tonight. And when I say pitch up, I mean it's about results, to be honest. I've now come to terms with the fact that we don't play particularly good football. It's not going to be an attractive win tonight. I just need to see a result, and I think what we've seen actually, especially in the Champions League over the last few days, it's not about performance, it's about getting through. We've seen Liverpool going out against PSG in penalties after, people talking about an offside goal and the likes of that. But I mean, last night, Real Madrid, I think we're quite lucky to go through. Atletico Madrid, I thought played really, really well. So tonight we've got to be in playoff mode. We've got to be ready to take any chance we have. It's unlikely, I think, Germany to go through. I mean, we could talk about us as favourites. I don't think we could be further from them, given the injury situation. But 8 o'clock tonight, it's not about injuries. It's about getting the job done. We are at Old Trafford, which probably doesn't really help us, to be perfectly honest, because we have been so atrocious at Old Trafford. But, if there's ever a way to be able to get fans up, to be able to get, the players into, a sort of a mode of do or die and making sure that they pitch up tonight is at Old Trafford. The fans will get up, and give them something. I think that's the big thing from a fan point of view, is give them something to get behind, give them a reason to come back over the weekend and the likes of that, because at the moment there have been very, very few. So coming up on the show, we're going to be talking about the Europa League, and we'll talk about some injury news in terms of Lenny Yoro, Harry Maguire, Mason Mount, Man Utd, for example. We'll talk about the a little bit about the interview with Jim Ratcliffe, we spoke about yesterday, but more so for focusing on the fact that the Carrington upgrade is on track and is set to open. And we'll also talk about a couple of transfer rumours, and one in particular about Diego Dalot. And that is the poll in the comments. So if you are watching, go and vote in the poll and let me know, would you like to keep him? Would you be prepared to lose him? And what do you think about the fact that there are a couple of clubs going after him? So let's get into it, shall we? And we'll start with tonight. Right, so yesterday Ruben Amorim had his press conference, and he confirmed a few injury updates. First one is that Mason Mount and Manuel Ugarte are officially back in training. It looks like Ugarte is available this evening. That sounds, he said in his words, Manu is in the squad, and I think there's no one returning, so it looks like he should be good to play tonight. However, Mason Mount, it is going to be too soon. There's talk about the fact that maybe he might be available in the next week or two. Harry Maguire as well, it's too soon. He said that he's hoping to have him for Sunday, which is our game against Leicester. But what he did confirm is that Lenny Yoro is out, which means that we are going to probably see the likes of Victor Lindelof, Matthias de Ligt, and Aiden Heaven. So could be a huge game coming up tonight for the young 18-year-old, who I thought was very good against Arsenal. I think that we threw him, out in the deep end, and I think he swam. To be fair, he had a very nice block, very important block, a couple of nice challenges. He looked the part. He's young, so it's difficult to really judge whether he's good enough and whether he's ready right now. But he looked the part, and tonight is going to have to really, really be there, because we've got no Maguire, no Lenny Yoro, no Mason Mount. No Luke Shaw, no Martinez, no Chloe Mary, no Ahmad, no Johnny Evans, no Tom Heaton, no Bayende. That's our injury list. It's a long, long injury list. The big news for Real Sociedad is that Martin Zubimendi is apparently going to be available. He came on as a substitute over the weekend. He didn't play against us last week because he was ill, but it looks like he should return this evening, which is not good news for us. We're losing players, they're getting players back. In terms of what this game means, and at the end of the day, I understood what Ruben Amorim was trying to say, but I don't agree with him. When he's talking about the fact that, our problems are far more than the, winning the trophy, for example, is not, his priority, because it doesn't help the club with the long-term issues. I get what he's trying to say in terms of there are bigger issues than, and winning the Europa just kind of papers over the cracks, but it's nonsense. This tournament is the only thing we have to play for this season. Getting into the Champions League gives us financial gain. We get money. We get £40 million, I think, is potentially. And the big thing about Jim Ratcliffe in the interview, he's basically saying that the Glazers banked on Champions League football. They basically bet every season. They bet on Champions League football to try and sort of bail them out of the financial issues they were in, and they had it for a few years. And then all of a sudden, we've not had it, and that's how quickly the money then dries up. So we talk about the fact that we're trying to bring that debt down. That that £1 billion of debt that we're trying to sort of small things. The transfer fees this season. This upcoming window, so Jim Ratcliffe basically saying that we will have to pay £59 million on previous transfers this window. If you're getting into the Champions League and you're bringing in £40 million, £50 million, that pays for that. So it's a very, very simple equation. We need the broadcast revenue from the Champions League. And this is our only opportunity of getting into that. We will not be in Europe next season unless we're in the Champions League. It's quite a weird situation, isn't it? We're sitting languishing in 15th in the league, and yet if we were to play in European football next season, it would be in the Champions League, because the only route we have of getting European football is winning the Europa League and that ticket into the Champions League. So we're sitting in a very strange position as a club, and that's why I say I don't agree with him in terms of not winning today. It isn't the end of the world. It's yes, we know we've got bigger things to deal with, but this is a small thing that we can try and win, try and help the situation, try and alleviate a little bit of money. And we're talking about the fact we need to try and raise, £2 billion for the stadium. Well, 50 million pounds can only help. So financially, we've got to go all in on the Europa and try and win this trophy. In terms of some players that have been introduced, we've got two youngsters, Tyler Friedrichsen, who is a centre back and was the captain for our in the under-19s youth league. He has been included in the Europa B list, and James Scanlon, who is a full international for Gibraltar. He has also been included in the B list, which means that they'll be potentially on the bench tonight. So you've got a forward there in James Scanlon and a centre back in Tyler Friedrichsen. And the thing is, we need a centre back on the match because we've got nobody really on the bench. Toby Codbier, for example, I expect to see him involved this evening. It's basically a case of Ruben Ammon's kind of just going to start what he has left, really. He doesn't really have the luxury of selecting a team tonight. He's kind of just looking at what he has left, and that's what he's going to have to use. So he's a bit of a damned if you do, damned if you don't situation, but I'd like to see him be brave, Obviously, we're going to have to see Aiden Heaven start. You just don't have any other options. But if things aren't working, bring on the youngsters and give them a go. Even if it's up front or if you're searching for a goal. I truly think that you've got nothing to lose by, if things aren't going well, trying something and bringing on youth where they can potentially make a difference. So that's kind of the injury situation we're sitting with the Europa League. Kickoff is at 8 o'clock tonight. So yeah, we will have a live stream. We're doing a bit of and sort of live coverage of some of the build up and the likes of that with your teams and stuff like so. So make sure that you subscribe to the channel for all of that, and we'll have a reaction after the game as well. Let's get into some more positive news, shall we? So we talk about the fact that United, and this was the interesting thing when Gary Neville was doing the interview. He was saying 25 years ago, United were the best club in the world, biggest club in the world. They had the best stadium, the best team, the best training facilities, and financially we're the strongest. And unfortunately, and we were, we had the best, we had the leading sports scientists, and we had the leading this and leading that. And the biggest problem is we felt because we had all that, that we were fine. And there was no sort of sense of trying to keep us in that position. There's no sense of, well, how do we make sure the stadium continues to be the best in the world? And this is the strange thing, we could have just, as the years gone by, updated Old Trafford, renovated it, and you could have done some quite dramatic things. You could have added to the South Stand and expanded that and make it a much bigger stadium. You could have increased capacity to 90,000 potentially. You could have sat there really sort of rebuilding parts of it, updating it, fixing the roof and that stuff. You could even put in a whole brand new roof, but we didn't. And now it's a situation where it's just financially stupid, basically, to try and renovate Old Trafford, because you're going to have to put well over £1 billion into it and probably still not reach the kind of vision you want. Whereas now we can spend £2 billion and build a stadium from scratch that's going to be to the sort of spec and to the class and facilities that we want. Then you got Carrington. Carrington was groundbreaking, 25, 30 years ago. Now it's incredibly outdated. And the big thing that Ineos did when they came in is they said they're going to upgrade Carrington. And it's going to be £50 million. That's the big thing, £50 million upgrade. And apparently that is on track and it is set to open on the 31st of July. Now, this is basically what we're looking at. So you can see that it's a big update on the canteen and the whole sort of general area. That's a bit of an honest impression of kind of what some of the different parts of it are going to look like. We haven't really, I don't think there's a lot of, changing in terms of the pitches, for example, but they're basically focused on, it's a two-part approach. There are different parts that they are looking at sort of doing it, but I think there's an article over here that talks about the fact that they want to basically upgrade the facility from a canteen point of view, the recovery facilities, the gym, the high performance aspect. And that was the whole intent. When they announced it, they said the refurbishment was, and I quote, to create a high performance collaborative environment for players and staff, and to try and modernize and basically revamp the entire thing to try and make it conducive for an elite squad and an elite environment. So it's not going to be, completely like over the top, all of a sudden your indoor stadiums and the whole flipping spiel. But it's going to be an update, which is nice to see. And I think the main thing as well is from a player point of view, you kind of want to see, and Ronaldo, that was the big thing when he arrived back. And he basically said that everything was exactly the same. He said the training facilities were the same, the canteen were the same, the people were the same. Nothing had ever changed at United. Now we are seeing something change. So it's not going to suddenly change into a world-class side, but it's just good to see that we're starting to take some sort of steps to going back to being the best club in the world. Trying to get back to having the best training facilities, trying to get back to having the best environment and an environment conducive to creating the best team in the world. So that's some nice news. And elsewhere, Ruben Amorim has been full of questions, and he spoke about the fact that he's got a really good relationship with the club owner, Sir Jim Ratcliffe. And Sir Jim Ratcliffe agreed. He spoke about the fact that he really likes Ruben Amorim, that he backs him and he wants him to stay. And he spoke about in terms of the relationship and said as follows. He said, it's really good since day one. I think we are really blunt and honest with each other. It's a little bit the character. We are quite similar in that way. So I always felt the support of the board and especially from Sir Jim. I cannot tell you the conversations, but they are simple conversations, clear conversations, and honest conversations. I'm hoping that the honest conversations is basically, mate, if, we will give you some players, hopefully, but if we don't start seeing performances, you understand that you can't stay around. In terms of the transfer plans, he's also asked about that. Ruben Amorim said, we have a clear plan to address next season. Of course, we have Europa and also can reach Champions League. We never know. It's far from this moment, but it can change. We never know the preparation for next season. We have a plan. We know what to do. We know we're in a difficult moment, but the most important thing, again, is to have a plan and to know what to do and to know what players you need to bring in. He did mention the fact that that's probably going to involve potentially selling players and the likes of that. And I think we have to be very brutal in the summer. If players aren't part of the long-term future, get them out, get some cash in. Even if they're players who could be part of the future. If a player like Garnacho is considered expendable and you can sell him for pure profit, where you can take whatever his transfer fee is and invest it directly into a player, then we must be doing that. We've got to make the big decisions. And speaking of big decisions, and somebody who's sellable, is that Diego Dalot is subject to a lot of different transfer rumors. And Team Talks had an article today saying that Bayern Munich have joined Real Madrid in showing interest for making a move for Manchester United defender Diego Dalot. Now, if we've been perfectly honest, the way he's played this season, a lot of United fans probably wouldn't even mind him going. And the biggest problem is he doesn't really suit the system. I think as a right back, I think he did a really good job under Erik ten Hag. He played really well. But at the moment, he doesn't quite have the attacking output of a right wing back, who's basically playing as an auxiliary winger in Ruben's system and is expected to create the chances and to really sort of go and get assists and to get into good positions. And defensively, he's not good enough really to be within the three centre backs. So he's kind of sort of floating in the middle. I think he's a decent right back, doesn't work in the wing back system. Now, if you've got a Bayern Munich and a Real Madrid, can you try and find £50 million for him? Can you maybe find £40 million for him? And then you can take that £50 million and reinvest in a genuine wingback who then suits the system. And this is the kind of decision we've got to make. Now, he's bleeds United, loves United, the whole thing like that. So you would be sad to miss from that kind of point of view. But again, we've got to be cutthroat. It's not also just about who you want to keep. It's about who can we leverage to get somebody else. Maybe we like a player, but he's sellable. Somebody wants him, and then as a result of that sell, we can find another player who can bring more value to the squad. We cannot let sentiment guide our decisions in the summer. We've got to make sure that we are cutthroat and we are making the decisions that need to be made across the entire squad. Then that's the big thing. No one is considered not for sale apart from like a Lenny Euro and I don't know, an Amad Diallo. I think apart from those two, and probably like a Matthijs de Ligt and the likes of that, but they've not ruled out potentially selling Højlund or loaning him out and the likes of that. Xerxes been linked to the Juventus a lot, so no one's really ruled out a move for him. If Bruno Fernandes could bring in 120 million pounds, the club would probably take it. To be honest, if they could get 100 million pounds for Bruno Fernandes, they'd probably sit there and say, well, for that we can go and find 3 million pound players, which might actually benefit the squad. So this is the thing. I don't think anybody is not for sale, and that's why we need to be really brutally honest about where we are as a squad. And the open heart surgery that Ralph Rangnick asked a long time ago it's time. And that's where I think we're going to see a very interesting transfer window in terms of being completely cutthroat and being willing to make the big decisions. In terms of other news, it was a very interesting, I think it was the Mappeteers were talking about the fact that they reckon that the stadium could be a very interesting prospect for Sir Jim Ratcliffe to increase his stake in Manchester United, and basically talk about the way it could work is that by investing more money into the stadium, they could basically invest the money, and the Glazers would basically give them equity in exchange for the investment in the club. So if Sir Jim Ratcliffe invests a whole bunch of money and the Glazers don't invest anything, they basically say, well, we'll put up equity instead, and they can actually increase his shareholding up to a majority shareholder, which is kind of where I think Sir Jim Ratcliffe wants to get to. The big thing, anything which sees the Glazers' involvement decrease and anything that gets them close to out the door is basically what we need. So a leveraged investment sort of buyout and the likes of that could be a nice opportunity. And the ironic thing is, in the way that sort of Mappeteers were saying, is that basically the reason why the Glazers could go for that is because it's about what their stake is worth. Their stake's currently worth, and I think it's about £1.5–2 billion. And they're saying with the way things are going, if they were to go down that route, where they might actually get a lower shareholding from a percentage point of view, but the value of that shareholding goes through the roof, and they can get that value closer to sort of 6 billion, and all of a sudden they can cash out at 3 billion. So that's kind of the thinking there, is the fact that they don't have to invest more money. They can actually decrease their shareholding, but in a few years' time be able to cash out more, so that they are they can make all the money. And that's basically, that's what they want. Anything that benefits them, anything that makes them more money, that's what they're trying to get. So time will tell whether that will actually become a thing. I don't even know if it's an officially a viable option. It's just something that's been put out there as a potential option, or something that might actually happen in terms of the way that it all works. So we'll have to monitor that. But we're going to wrap up there for today. Let me know what you think about the Dalot situation. I think that's quite an interesting one, whether we keep him or sell him. 100% of the poll saying yes, they would keep him. So let me know what you think down in the comments below. Smash the like on the video, subscribe to the channel as well, and we'll see you guys all a bit later for a reaction of the match, and hopefully tomorrow morning do some really good news about a really good result that puts us firmly into contention winning the